Jan Leike and Ilya Sutskever have both resigned from OpenAI just a day before the announcement of GPT-4o. These follow several other high-profile, or not quite as high-profile resignations, but namely several people from the super alignment team, such as Leopold Aschenbrenner and Pavel Izmailov, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, as well as several other people from the safety and governance team, namely Daniel Coquetillo and William Saunders. Pardon me. So, what does all of this mean? Well, taking a big step back, we remember that back late last year, there was that coup attempt where Sam Altman was briefly fired from OpenAI and then brought back almost by unanimous demand from the employees. So, here's a chance for me to spam one of my most favorite books, which is The Status Game by Will Storr. And so what happened is you have a very clear power structure with Sam Altman at the top. So this is a clear social hierarchy. Human operating system is no different, no matter what kind of high-minded ideals a company tries to put in with their charter and their board of directors and whatever else. Humans are humans and will always be humans. And so Ilya was part of a coup attempt to take out the alpha. Now, taking out the alpha is always a thing that is always an option on the table in any social hierarchy. It's just a matter of the rules that you're allowed to go about doing that and the consequences for failure. So, in the case of lions, the alpha males are usually deposed every 3 to 5 years by a younger up-and-coming male, and this is by evolutionary design, because the lionesses, who are the ones who actually control the territory, they want that new genetic stock. And also, being the alpha lion, it takes a toll on you. Same thing for chimps and gorillas, where the alpha is basically you take a swipe at the alpha, you had better depose him, or you at worst you're going to get murdered, but you might also get castrated or ejected from the troop or the tribe or whatever. And again, this is the same operating system that we have. We're all mammals, and so what happened is what's called social sanction. So Ilya was part of the coup attempt and failed. So what naturally happens is you basically get canceled. So cancel culture is nothing new. It's just now we can see it on the internet. So Ilya was canceled within OpenAI. So regardless of what the official power structure said, he had lost all faith. So this is what's basically considered the equivalent of a social execution. So Ilya's status went from near the top to near the bottom. This is pretty much just the default social human operating system playing out. Now, once Sam Altman realized this, and probably he had PR, specialists, for optics, he was very magnanimous. And he's like, oh, I bear Ilya no ill will. I hope I work with Ilya for a long time, blah, 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 blah. Whatever happens to be true, I don't know. But what Sam was saying, he was very, very visibly demonstrating magnanimity, which is one thing that alphas are supposed to show, is saying, oh, hey, I won, no big deal. And he talked about how painful it was. It was scary, it was painful, but then coming back into his power, rather than being wrathful or vengeful or, bent out of shape about it, it's oh, everything's back to normal. Because alpha males are also supposed to be, and I mean true alpha males, in the animal world. I don't mean Andrew Tate alpha male. Real alpha males are supposed to be the primary peacemakers. So this is something about chimpanzees and gorillas, is actually the ones who break up most of the fights are the alpha males. So they have to be the chief peacemakers. Now, what happened shortly after this, though, Ilya launched a tweet that has since, it was very quickly deleted, but I remember this. He launched a tweet that said, the beatings shall continue until morale improves. So this is, to me, a very clear sign that he was under social sanction, that he had been in a very high social status, and now he's in a very low social status. And of course, we haven't really heard from him in months. Now, none of this is really surprising, and let me tell you why. There's a few reasons that this whole turn of events is not really surprising, even if it is still a little bit alarming. First and foremost, OpenAI was still, until a year or two ago, very much in startup mode. Now you might say, but Dave, they've been around for 10 years. That's not a startup. Actually, keep in mind that most startups, it takes 6 to 12 years before they go public. So they're very much still in startup mode, and they went from, I think, 100 or 200 employees to over 800 just a few months ago. Now they're opening offices all over the world. I think it was, London was the most recent one, and then Japan or something. Anyways, So they are scaling super fast. And whenever you scale a company, here's one of the things that happens to the social dynamics. You have the core team, the original 100 to 200 employees. And then you have, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with my throat, probably allergies. So then you have the core team, the original 1 to 200 employees that have the core ethos. Most of them are in leadership. Many of them have positions of privilege just by virtue of being OG OpenAI staff. But then you have several hundred new people. So you have a ratio of 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 of new people. And this dilutes the culture a lot. And so a lot of OG people in startup companies, they often end up leaving just because they no longer feel special. They no longer feel like, man, like, do you remember the good old days? And I've been at startups, and there is very something kind of special about feeling like one of the OG. But then particularly as things keep growing, and if anyone surpasses you, that doesn't feel so good. But then the culture also starts to change. And it's not just the admixture of new people. It is also that the company is going through a transition. So there's startup mode, which is where you have to be really scrappy and wear a bunch of hats, and do things a particular way. But now they're in the hyperscaling mode, which is, they're approaching 1,000 employees, which means they're a mid-sized business. And the way that mid-sized businesses are run, they become much more bureaucratic. There's more meetings. There's more interactions with strangers. You don't know everyone, because that's one of the weirdest things of going from a startup to a mid-sized business is once you get past Dunbar's number. In fact, what was it? I think it was maybe it was Exponential Organizations. One of the books that I read, he said there's a very clear set of transitions, and the first transition is once you get above 26 people, you can no longer have a flat hierarchy, and that is because human brains are highly calibrated to operate in flat groups up to about 20 to 25, because that's the size of our tribal unit from our time in the distant past, Paleolithic era. So we are able to work in tribal units of up to about 20, 25, and that's just what our neurology is calibrated for. Beyond that, once you get to the 26 to 100 to 200, once you're still within Dunbar's number, that again, our neurology requires certain affordances. But once you get beyond that, you're basically coordinating a small city, which means that there's a lot more anonymity. There's a lot of other things going on top of the business pressures, on top of the new competitive landscape that the business is in. And then you have OpenAI that has been in this debate where they tried this really weird governance structure where they said, we're the good guys. It was basically like the not like other girls of startups. That's kind of how I've mentally started thinking about it. We're not like other startups. We have this, fun governance structure which guarantees that we're going to do AI safety. And we see that has basically just been categorically thrown out the window. So yeah, that it is what it is. But so you'd expect some of the OG team to start leaving around this time anyways. Happens with every big startup from Google to Microsoft and so on and so forth. Now, one thing that I will say is that they have been kind of slowly abandoning their more high-minded language around AI safety and what is it that we're building in AGI. And I've never really been quite okay with the way that Sam Altman talks about AGI. One, there's this religious reverence, and you see it in his tweets as well. So, and he thinks that he's the one that's creating this. So there's certainly some ego going on there. But he's also constantly said it's not a creature, it's just a tool. And so that's not really, that is what's called he's foreclosed upon the idea that it's anything else. He believes that he knows what he's creating and what its implications will be. But that has never been true for most technology. If you watched Oppenheimer, the way that we've cast it in hindsight is that Oppenheimer knew what he was creating, that it was going to have this, profound impact on the world. But of course that's looking in hindsight over 80 years ago. So we can't really and to be perfectly transparent, back in the days of GPT-2, GPT-3, I was OpenAI fanboy. I was 100% in their corner. What they're doing is right. But over time, I've just been increasingly uneasy about the power, the concentration of power and everything all the directions that they've been going. So that's, full disclosure. I'm probably not surprised to anyone on here. Now, on the other hand, I'm glad that they exist. I ran a poll a few months ago, on balance, is the existence of OpenAI and Sam Altman a net positive for humanity? And it was yes. It was, I don't remember, but it was like vast majority said yes, net positive. That what OpenAI is doing and what Sam Altman is doing is still on balance better for humanity than if they weren't doing what they're doing. So the last point that I want to address is the timing. So the timing seems rather conspicuous, doesn't it? With Ilya announcing his resignation just before GPT-4o being debuted, and then Jan right after that. So Jan was the head of the super alignment team. So it's not surprising that Ilya would leave. It's only a matter of time once you go through social sanction before you realize this is irrecoverable. His status was irretrievable. There's just no coming back. And so that was a long time coming. Honestly, I'm surprised it took this long. He might have been trying to talk behind the scenes. I could imagine the conversations going, because Ilya is really like the pure scientist. He's clearly not a political operator. He's not that socially savvy, if I had to guess. So he was probably still talking with Sam, trying to like salvage his reputation, and Sam was just kind of letting it work itself out until Ilya realized, like, okay, there's nothing else to be done here. And so then probably, if I had to guess, Ilya said, all right, it's time for me to go. And Sam said, okay, wait until this date so that it gets, so that we drown it out. Is probably what I guess, because generally what happens if you don't want to blow the lid off of something, you resign either just before or just after a big event so that you've got some air cover. And so it was probably kept secret. So Ilya resigned, and then Jan, knowing that Ilya was like one of the key scientists, said, okay, this sounds like a complete loss of faith on Jan's part, where he's like, you know what, if Ilya's out, I'm out. So that sounds almost like a reactionary thing. But again, the fact that it all happened just before a big announcement to provide some air cover, they might have also done this as a favor. And so here's one thing is, when you're that big, the optics really, really matter. So for instance, if you want to get a job at another tech company, you want to be seen as leaving as graciously as possible. Because if you have a reputation for blowing stuff up and rocking the boat, some people might, think twice before hiring you moving forward. So that's my analysis. It is a little bit alarming. It is a little bit shocking. But honestly, after doing this analysis, it's not surprising at all. It's just more evidence in the basket that OpenAI is 100% for profit, which is kind of what you'd expect all along. That's what a lot of us have been talking about, which is like the appeal for power, the appeal for money. All of that was just way too compelling for Sam and the structure of Microsoft. When Microsoft said, we are over and above and around them, right? Like they're part of the corporate machine now. So it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments. The poll that I ran yesterday, I think that a majority of you think that this is mostly negative, or at least partly negative. Which I would tend to agree, but also inevitable, like Thanos in the snap, like I am inevitable. So Ilya leaving was inevitable. If you know anything about social status and social science and psychology, and then Jan leaving right after, kind of not a surprise, but the fact that he was the chief of super alignment, that's a little bit more alarming. So anyways, cheers. Thanks for watching. Bye.